We had a wonderful first panel on AI for Good. I know a lot of folks had really amazing questions. We may start the Q&A a little bit earlier this time around. This is our Pathway to Career panel, and as I know, all of our gold medalists are embarking upon this next phase of their journey. They are thinking about what is the next step. A lot of our young folks are rising juniors, rising seniors, heading into college next year, the workforce, military service, all sorts of paths in front of you. And so we are really delighted to be able to offer this opportunity to learn from some of these incredible leaders who are board members, they are friends, they are advocates, they are passionate about youth development, and are just amazing in their own right, in their own careers and companies. So it is my pleasure just to start things off. One of our board members from the great state of New Mexico is here. I'd like to welcome to the podium Senator Ben Ray Luján.
I hope everyone is doing well. I want to be mindful about the length of my remarks today because I was told about the line of questions that still need to be fulfilled. But welcome to Washington, D.C., to every one of you that is not from our nation's capital. My name is Ben Ray Luján. I'm currently serving as United States Senator out of New Mexico. And this important conversation with this incredible panel that has been put together about pathways to careers. A few things that I wanted to share with you about my life and what I've learned while serving here in our nation's capital. I was a member of the House of Representatives before being elected to the Senate. My colleagues in the House entrusted me with leadership responsibilities in the House of Representatives as well. Being able to engage with not just colleagues from across America, with diplomats from around the world, with various presidents that have served the United States of America, with the goal of making things better. There's a few things that I also learned that matter to me, and I think that will strengthen you with your pursuits, no matter where life takes you, whether it's in a C-suite, it's with an institution, a university, somewhere around the world. Character, ethics matter. Keeping your word matters. Now, don't let the actions of some sway your views on the importance of ethics and character. The decisions that you'll make when no one else is watching, they will be with you the rest of your life. Keeping your word matters in Washington, D.C., at least it once did. When you're working with someone and you make a commitment to do something, to get something done, to make things better, keep your word. If you're not able to fulfill it, make sure that you go back to the people that you engaged with and share with them why you can't or that you're the deliverer of the news to them. Ethics, integrity, character, it all will make a positive difference in your life. Now, when I'm not here in our nation's capital and I'm not working in all the small towns and communities across New Mexico, I'm fourth generation from a small farm. My calloused hands and blistered hands give me the credit to tell you that I'm not lying about those kinds of things. I'm happiest when I'm out there with a shovel, I'm in a ditch, in an acequia, I'm on the small farm, building the character that I learned from my father. Hard work is something that I embrace. That was a part of my life growing up. Taking care of my mom, who's now 86, she'll be 87 soon. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. When I'm not on the road, I'm with my mom. So are my siblings. Mom's gotten a little bit older now. She's had a diagnosis with early stage dementia. Roles change. Don't forget about all that's important to you. Last thing I'll share with you is 4 years ago I survived a stroke. Take care of yourselves. Be mindful about you, about the stresses in your life. Sleep is okay. I was raised by believing that sleep was for weak people. Make sure you take care of yourself and be mindful because you're only able to give of yourself as healthy as you truly are. So don't forget about that important aspect that no one else in your life will remind you about. Stay strong, be ethical, character matters, integrity and do great things. Last thing I'll say to those of you that might be looking for internships in Washington, D.C., I started as an intern in our nation's capital. It opened up doors for me. I was later elected to the office that I interned to, and then I later am now serving our state in the United States Senate. Look for opportunities, do something profound with them, get to know others, build those networks, take care of yourself, and make a difference every day where you can, everyone. It's an honor to be with you. Congratulations on being here, on being part of this program. We depend on you, so don't wait for someone to say, our future leaders, you're there now. Open these doors, get a seat at the table, and make things better everywhere that you know that they need to be made. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'd like to invite our panelists to come in, and we will begin with a photograph in front of the table. Thank you. In front of the table. You put these down. Senator, thank you so much for your kind words. All right, take care. All right, so we will get started with our Pathway to Career panel. Please have a seat, and I'm going to turn things over to the amazing Jabin Castro, who is, well, he'll tell you a little bit about what he does, but who's representing the Chief Administration Office, CAO, and we get to work with quite a bit. So thank you for being here, and the panel is yours.
Good. Can you guys hear me? We're good? All right, I got a thumbs up from all the way up there, so thank you so much. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jabin Castro, and I am the Community Outreach and Engagement Director for the Chief Administrative Officer, or CAO. CAO is an organization within the U.S. House of Representatives. We are strictly nonpartisan and non-legislative. But what we do have is some great resources. As the Senator just mentioned, if anyone here is thinking about, someday doing an internship in Congress, right outside the doors, we have one of the many offices that I work with, the House Intern Resource Office. That is exactly what that sounds like, where they work with interns who are interested in finding an opportunity to internship here in DC, and it's a free resource. So make sure you guys stop by right outside and say hello to the House Intern Resource Office. But enough about me. I want to tell you guys, introduce you guys to a really amazing panel that we have here as we talk about pathways to career. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. We're going to start with Brittany. Can you, yeah?
There we go. Can you guys hear me? You would think maybe I work for a technology company, but here we go. Brittany Masalo-Salo. I am the Chief Public Policy Officer at HP, that's Hewlett-Packard. I'm sure it's a company that many of you know. I hope at least at one point in your lives you had an HP computer, or maybe a desktop, or a printer, or something like that. In my role as the Chief Public Policy Officer, I'm responsible for HP's relationship with governments all around the world. So that includes spending a lot of time here in DC, but I also spend a lot of time in Brussels and Beijing and Singapore and Mexico City, helping to maintain our relationships with those governments. The other side of my job includes helping my company understand how policy is going to impact our business, our employees, the communities that we operate in, and then planning accordingly. Sometimes policies might create risks for us, it might cost us money, it might force us to make changes, but more often than not, policy creates opportunities for us, so I also help the business design strategies. I've been with HP for about 4 years. Before that, it's all history. I'll just tell you the highlights. I spent a lot of time working in the government. I was a foreign policy advisor at the White House for a few years. I served 13 years on active duty in the Army, including 2 combat deployments. And I have a few degrees from the American military academies and from Harvard University. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brittany. All right, Tom.
Good to be with everyone. My name is Tom Gannon. I'm the Chief Advocacy Officer for LPL Financial. LPL is a wealth management firm. We're U.S. only. We manage $2.3 trillion of other people's money, serving about 8 million American households across the U.S. In my role, similarly, I also manage our relationships with governments, both at the federal and state level. We also work closely with regulators, so think of the SEC or Treasury or others. You know, the wealth space is a pretty highly regulated area of banking, and so we spend a lot of time with regulators both at the state and federal level. In addition to that, my team also manages LPL's community impact and the LPL Foundation. And so that team is really focused on giving back to communities where we live and work. It's also focused on ensuring that the next generation of financial planners and financial advisors look much like the country that we live and love and work in. And so we're investing with nonprofits across the U.S. To make sure that college kids and early career folks that have an interest in banking understand what it means to be a financial advisor and have a career as a financial planner. And so prior to that, I spent 11 years at MasterCard in a similar role. Also worked for H&R Block as their chief advocacy officer. I actually started in DC as an intern, and like many of us probably. And so have been, did not grow up in a family that necessarily was interested or active in government beyond consistently voting in the elections. So, you know, really, you know, moved here to DC and so the early 2000s and kind of found my way starting as an intern for a member of Congress from New York. So good to be with you all.
All right, and Brendan.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the time to be here, and it's inspiring to be here with so many of you who have received this gold medal today. My name is Brendan Murphy. I'm the acting director of AmeriCorps Vista. AmeriCorps is the federal agency whose mission is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through national service and volunteering. We do that through a variety of programs by connecting individuals with national service opportunities in communities, through nonprofits where we allow communities to tell us what they need to serve. Every year, we engage about 250,000 Americans in national service serving their communities. My program, AmeriCorps Vista, in my position, I get to lead a program whose mission is to alleviate poverty. Everything our volunteers do is to help those grow out and come out of poverty. We do that through indirect capacity building, where individuals get opportunities to work in offices and learn how to do fundraising, grant writing, volunteer recruitment, and help organizations build systems to continue that service long after our volunteers are gone.
All right, so I love this introduction. Hopefully you guys are paying attention and you guys heard a little bit about HP and some of the, you know, policies that they work on. Obviously with Tom and some of the government relations stuff that they work on, and obviously a government agency. All that to say is when I told you about doing an internship in Congress, I know a lot of times the first thing people think is, yeah, I don't want to do policy, or I don't want to work in Congress. That's not the point of an internship here. The point for me is, I don't care if you go and you want to work at HP or you want to work financial. The point is understanding a little bit about the policy. Because if you think about it, every single industry is touched by the laws that are passed in Congress. So if you come here and you want to be a doctor, guess what? Do an internship on the Hill, because you'll get to learn a little bit about healthcare policy. That's going to affect you when you get to become a doctor, stuff like that. And also, your backgrounds, as I was listening in, kind of leads perfectly to the first question. Was there a moment when your career path became clear, or did it unfold gradually over time? What should students know about that process? Because obviously, you guys all did not start where you're at right now. So when did your career path become clear?
Maybe I'll start and take a stab at it. I will say unequivocally, it unfolds over time. I'd like to think my career is still unfolding in real time as we speak. When you first graduate from school, whether you decide to graduate from high school, whether you decide to go to college or take an alternative pathway, a vocational pathway, you may think that you have an idea of what you want to do. And oftentimes, it's spot on. That's what you go on to do and study and learn and love. But sometimes you'll come across these enlightening experiences where you'll step into an unlikely internship that maybe your parents nudged you into or a school counselor, and you decide that, wait a minute, this is actually something that I really like to do or something that I'm really good at. That never really stops. Throughout the duration of my career, I've been given stretch assignments or put on a mission to go do this or given an extra duty or an additional duty, and I discovered that it's something that I like to do or it's something that I'm really good at. And I take that as kind of a little bit of a nudge for me to explore it a little bit deeper. And so I think letting it unfold over time, not being too rigid on a trajectory that you think you have in mind, giving yourself some flexibility, some grace, and above all else, staying curious will help it unfold in a way that's probably going to lead to good success.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at least, the key words were being curious and being open. I think there's often times where, I would have sort of a preconceived notion of what this opportunity may or may not be, and I think it's easy sometimes to make judgments about whether you want to pursue that or not pursue that. And, in some cases, I had one notion going into an opportunity, whether it was an internship or, frankly, a job, and it turned out that I was wrong. It was, it was a better fit, or it was not exactly what I thought it would be, but in a good way. And I think, internships are a great place to start. They're sort of a safe place to spend a few months exploring something and being curious and raising your hand to support the work that the team that you're on is doing. And those were all easy, good things to do because it really does allow you, to Brittany's point, to say, yeah, that may be interesting as a future career or job. No, that may not be. And so I very intentionally, every summer in between, as an undergrad, in between years, would take a different kind of an internship in a different place based upon interests that I had, to really sort of explore and spend a couple months figuring out, is this something that I could potentially see myself doing when I graduate or not?
Awesome. Do you want to add on?
I was going to say, always be open to learning new things because you never know what's coming and what those opportunities will provide to you. When I graduated college, I had heard about this organization called AmeriCorps, and I said I would give 1 year of my life to give back to the communities before joining the professional world. Over 20 years later, I'm now the acting director of one of those AmeriCorps programs. So when I took that opportunity, when I took that small risk to do something before joining a career, it led to my career, and you never know where that's going to go. So always be open to those opportunities.
All right, so you guys brought up some really good points, obviously different experiences, learning new things, being open to different things, which leads to our next question. But before I go to our next question, you guys will have an opportunity to ask some of your own questions. So start prepping right now, all right? So as you're learning, as your suggestion to come into the workforce and be open-minded, do those different experiences, learn those new things. Our gold medalists here have built skills through service, goal setting, fitness, and personal development. Looking back, what non-traditional experience helped prepare you for your career, i.e. some of those being open to new experiences, learning new things? What are some of those?
Yeah, sure. So I think there were a lot of experiences that I had as an undergrad that ones that maybe I didn't necessarily think initially would be either of interest or value. I'm a first generation college grad, come from a big family in upstate New York, and one of the things, so my undergrad experience perhaps was a little different as one of the older of six than some of my siblings, but I think I was very much interested in like trying different things. Part of it out of necessity to sort of pay for school, but also part of it out of necessity of like trying to figure out sort of my path. And so, I was a student athlete while I was an undergrad. Was not, an athlete that was like necessarily recruited heavily, but just, having sort of some, structure and sort of rigor in my schedule was something that I knew was important to me. And so I ran most of my 4 years of undergrad while I was going to school in Buffalo. I think really looking to kind of volunteer for different projects while I was an undergrad was another thing that was sort of important. I was trying to sort of figure out what my sort of area of focus would be academically, and so being open to different opportunities, whether they were one-off projects or whether they were something related to the classes you were taking, I think were also sort of important because they helped kind of me understand what things I might be willing to do or not be willing to do as I continued to pursue my undergrad and thought about sort of the next internship or the next summer, et cetera. So those were some of the things and approaches that I took as an undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to hear service is what everything comes back to for me. When I joined AmeriCorps, I thought it would be a short little stint, but during my service term, and this will tell you how old I am, is when Hurricane Katrina hit. And so what I thought I was going to do in AmeriCorps was very different. I got sent down to Louisiana to oversee cleanup operations for about with 800 to 1,000 volunteers a week. With not much experience, and had to figure out the logistics of that, how to figure out how to move people around, how to bring in people, teach them to be safe, and move that. So again, going back to, you never know what those opportunities are gonna bring, but when you're faced with challenges, be willing to embrace them, be willing to ask for help is really important, and be open to learning those new skills. But I really credit that experience with where I am today, being able to lead a national service program.
Maybe I'll just add on a little bit. I heard a quote a couple of days ago, and it said, "Experience is the culmination of the mistakes you've made." And I love that quote because when I think about the non-traditional nature of my career pathway, which was very non-traditional, I look back and think, where did I make mistakes along the way? And it couldn't be truer than true that those so-called, at the time, mistakes really became enhancing experiences for me. I also know that a lot of peers, colleagues, friends, other C-suite executives, CEOs, members of Congress that I speak to, more often than not, there's a lot of non-traditional pathways because there's something to be said about charting your own course. I'll maybe share a couple of specifics from my background that I think are important. The first non-traditional from my background is that I grew up in a very low socioeconomic status. I was bounced around in foster care for many, many, many years. This at a very young age taught me responsibility, grit. It taught me how to take charge of my own happiness in life, and those are things that have enhanced my career and continue to do so through this day. Another non-traditional part of my career pathway, and parents in the room, forgive me in advance for saying this, was that 2 years into college, I dropped out. I dropped out 2 years into a full-ride scholarship at the Colorado School of Mines, one of the top engineering schools in the country, because 2 years into it, I discovered I didn't want to be an engineer. And so I dropped out and I enlisted in the Army. That was one of those mistakes that became one of the smartest mistakes I could have ever made in my life. I spent 13 years on active duty in service. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I spent 13 years on active duty in service, and that speaks to exactly what Brennan was mentioning. Having the opportunity to serve something higher than yourself, it stays with you forever. And I consider myself now a servant leader. It's been critical to my career pathway to have that mindset as a servant leader. So I say all this to say that these non-traditional pivots or diversions or even obstacles that life might throw at you, take it with grace, take it in stride, learn every lesson that you can, and it will strengthen you in the future. And the last thing I'll mention that's not really about my background, but something that I hear a lot, was something that Tom mentioned. He was a student athlete. I have such tremendous respect for student athletes because they learn how to balance a heavy workload with their schools and also their athletic work. But one of the things that I've learned about student athletes that often doesn't get due recognition is many times they learn the most critical aspects of teamwork and collaboration. The people that work on my teams across the world who were student athletes or continue to be athletes, they just bring this mindset of teamwork and collaborating that's super, super critical. So to any of you here that may be student athletes or may be contemplating whether you want to continue to pursue your sport as you pursue your academic career, I would encourage you to do so.
That's a really good example of teamwork. And as a fellow veteran, I got to throw us in there too. We learn a little bit of teamwork, you know? I mean, some of us Navy, you know, probably better than Army, well, whatever, you know, whatever it might be. Brendan, afterwards, we're going to talk about Louisiana 2005. I was down there also with that insurance company, so I'm sure we have some really good stories. So, with what you guys are talking about right now, and obviously, you know, keeping in mind that we have 3 different companies here. The next question, we'll start with Brendan since we're working our way down, because I'm interested to find out if, you know, we get 3 different answers from 3 different industries, or is their overall answer probably about the same? So let's find out. In your career or organization, how do you know when you keep pushing through obstacles and when to pivot?
That's a great question. I would start by answering that question by saying something I tell my team all the time is don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Always keep pushing through. There are a lot of times where if things aren't perfect, aren't exactly how you want it, people stop and hesitate. But then you'll continue to make progress. You can always fix those opportunities. You can always change course. So I wouldn't say necessarily stop progress or pivot. You can pivot while continuing to move forward. So I hope you take that with you, is how I would answer that.
I'll give an answer just in terms of how we think, like how my team thinks about that, working for LPL, which is probably very similar to working at other companies. We're very focused in terms of the work that we do from an advocacy perspective. We're engaging with policymakers around 2 things. One, serving policymakers, serving as a resource. You know, industries are complicated things to navigate from a policy perspective. Banking, which is the space that I'm in, is highly regulated. I think sometimes the complexity of rules that you have to operate under are really a function of just a regulatory structure that needs to be unpacked for policymakers and others to help them understand the rules that apply to industry and to, in my case, financial advisors that we serve, and how that impacts their ability to serve everyday Americans. My firm serves what we call kind of mass affluent, and so that's everyday Americans, small business owners, firefighters, teachers, others that are looking to save for retirement. That's kind of the space that we're in. In terms of like how we approach the job, I would say we're very focused on sort of how do we eliminate risk to the system, to the industry, to retail investors, everyday Americans that we serve. There's lots of ways to sort of focus on that. And then what are the things that we're advocating for that create clarity and certainty for the business That's really kind of how we approach the job. And so we're not focused on 100 different things. We're focused on a much smaller set, I would say 20 or 25 initiatives. And, you know, advocacy takes time. And so we tend to play the long game, to your point of like, when do you know when to quit? I think incremental progress is important, and that's kind of how we approach it. But we tend to focus on the things that have the greatest impact to everyday savers and those that are looking to save money for retirement, and sort of, you know, the industry at large. And that's kind of how we focus and do the job that we're
Okay.
And I agree with a lot of what was said on the specifics of the work that we do, because it's not all that dissimilar. We do a lot of advocacy as well. But maybe I'll kind of take a little bit of liberty to answer the question a little bit of a different way, zooming out through more of a telescope lens on career. And when do you pivot? When do you keep pushing through? Am I making progress? Am I advancing? Am I climbing the ladder? Does my boss hate me? Should I go find a new job? I think those are some of the questions that young people grapple through, and frankly, as old people grapple sometimes with that too. So the way that I think about whether you stick it out or whether it's time to make a pivot is, and this is what works for me, it's about finding balance in life. And I use that term very cautiously because I don't like when they say, you know, work-life balance. It doesn't exist. You can have everything, you just can't have everything all at once. I'll tell a lot of young people that right now. You can have everything, just not all at once. But it's about finding your balance on who you are and what you need. So what works for me is a practice I learned from a young lady named Emma was thinking about my life in thirds. So a third of the time, I am on cloud nine, I am full of joy, I am happiness. A third of the time, I'm just kind of cruising along with contentment. And then a third of the time, it's probably really hard and I am in the trenches. That's my balance, to have that third. So when that third gets out of whack, let's say I'm spending 2/3 of my time happy, joyful, everything is going good, it's an indicator for me that I'm probably not pushing too hard. So I need to push a little bit harder, push my team harder, make sure that we're orienting ourselves and working as hard as this company expects us to do so. Now, if it's the opposite, where everything is hard all the time, it might be time to start thinking about a pivot, reevaluating what that might look like. So I say all that to say, though, is that there's something that I've learned that has had to develop over time, and it comes with judgment, which in order to really have sound judgment, you gotta have experience and you gotta go through it, is that the value in failing fast. Oftentimes, I'll see a lot of people prolong a failure where they'll continue to hold on, continue to push, continue to invest, trying to salvage maybe some work or some effort that they have put into something. There's nothing wrong with failing fast, acknowledging it, and then moving on, incrementing, ideating, pivoting, whatever that may look like. So that's something I would also encourage you. As you go through the courses of continuing your education and into your careers, keep in the back of your mind what fast failure might look like and where you can find value in it.
Those are all really good points you guys are making. I'm writing them down too. So that's really good. So if you guys ever see me in another panel and I sound like them, you know why. All right, and you guys are getting ready for your questions, right? You guys getting ready? All right. So maybe this one will kind of get you that chispa going. Let's see here. What is something students often misunderstand about your field, industry, or organization before they enter it? Anyone wants to start with that one?
Maybe I'll go first. That one's a little bit of a tricky one for me. I told you guys in the beginning I work for HP, and so at HP we really like to think of ourselves as a Silicon Valley tech company, and that comes with a whole lot of misconceptions and also a lot of true impressions about what Silicon Valley tech industry looks like. They imagine people walking around in jeans and hoodies and engineers kind of popping out the latest and greatest and bringing in a whole bunch of cash while doing it. But here's what I'll tell you. I had somebody once say to me something that rings true, is that HP is like the designated driver in the tech industry. because we're such an old company, we're an iconic company, we're a trusted brand, been around for 80 years. So while HP kind of wants to be one of the cool tech companies, the reality is we're not really as cool as we'd like to think we are. But I'll also say that's one of the things that I do love about the company, working for a tech company that's still grounded in principles, strong ethic behavior, and just has a lot of experience in going through business and economic fluctuations. And so that's kind of what I like about it. The other thing that I will say is maybe a misconception working in a Fortune 100 company is a lot of times people think that when you're one of these high-powered executives that you're just working 18 hours days, that's all you're doing is working. I can tell you that's not true across the board. We have made remarkable strides in the private sector, particularly in the more mature aspects of the tech industry, in making sure that we always take a beat, find time to take care of ourselves. Just like the senator was saying when he's on board, we do still prioritize that, and there are a lot of companies that do the same.
So I would say, like, there's nothing that replaces the experience you get from trying something. Because oftentimes your first impressions or what you think an opportunity is may be different than what it actually looks like in real life by trying it. I mean, I've certainly sort of taken that approach. Look, I've worked for 3 different companies, some of them global, some of them US only, varying sort of size in spaces within finance and banking. You know, every company has a different culture. Every organization has a different culture in terms of, you know, how you relate to your job and your profession and what that looks like to the larger organization or company that you work in. And so I think, you know, there's nothing that replaces actually trying something out and doing something to really sort of understand what it would be like in that organization or in that company. I think, you know, that's, in my mind, sort of the easiest way to reset misconceptions about what it may be like to work in an organization or a company.
That's good.
And I can take this a couple ways, thinking about things that are misunderstood about the field. I'm a federal employee, and sometimes federal employees have a stigma that they get a job, they do that job for 20 years, and they retire. Yes, I've been with my agency for 20 years, but I've had the opportunity and took advantage of opportunities to try new things, to go into contracting, get HR experience, which was able to help grow all around. So don't believe everything you hear about federal employees. We are all motivated. Everyone is a civil servant that is really looking to help the country in different ways. Also around AmeriCorps, people think volunteering is a nice to have, but AmeriCorps gives people an opportunity to give back full-time, receive a living allowance, receive benefits like health care, like an education award. So it gives you that opportunity to give back while still earning a living and gaining that experience as well.
That's pretty good. All right, now it's your turn. So I'm looking out onto the audience, and hopefully we got some questions. Do we have any questions in the audience right now? From Texas. Yes, ma'am. Do we have a mic? Okay. Look at Texas stepping up. I'm not trying to say anything else about any other states, but okay, Texas.
Hi, my name is Padma. I'm from Austin, Texas. I go to UT, so hook 'em horns. I had a question for all of you. So you guys talk a lot about your journey and how it was a gradual process, but I'd really like to know how you made a firm decision and trusted yourself that this was right and that you wanted to commit. You guys talked a lot about trying new opportunities, and I'd like to know a little bit more about how it felt right, like what felt right, or how you knew that this is what you wanted to continue.
I'll start. I mean, look, I think there's something to be said for the intersection between the things that you are interested in the things that you love doing, the things that get you out of bed every day, and the application of that in terms of a career. And I've always sort of thought about career in that way, like there has to be some alignment between the two. And so, you know, we all spend like a lot of time at work, despite the need to have balance. And so if you're gonna spend however long you're gonna spend in the work world, you might as well do it spending time with people that you respect and people that you admire and look up to and want to, work with, but also do it with something that you have some passion about, some interest in, some curiosity. And that was certainly the approach that I took. And I think, taking those two in tandem really help you sort of evaluate what your career looks like or what it could look like versus what is just a job and therefore really not that fulfilling and really not that interesting.
Yeah, I would agree, and to piggyback on what Tom said and what Brittany said earlier around having that passion, but there's going to be struggles. I think a lot of people say, you've probably all heard that saying, find a job you love, you'll never work in a day. I hate to say it, that's not true. You're still going to have struggles, but having that passion, as he was just saying, allows you to work through those struggles, allows you to still go home happy at the end of a rough day. But trying those new things, being willing, and then along that journey, you're gonna find that passion. You're gonna find what gets you out of bed every morning and how to tie that in together.
And that's such a good question. Let me also say, God bless those people who say, I knew and I was certain this is what I wanted to do, and I never doubted it for a moment. I'm not one of those people. I have been like, I think this is what I want to do. I think this is going to be good, and I'm going to take a chance and do it. I've never had just that pure, unwavering certainty. So that's an element of being willing to take some risks, even when you're not fully sure. That's one. The other thing that I will say, and I tell this to a lot of young people, is I'm a firm believer in values-based decision-making. So that requires a sense of self-awareness and being really, really honest about what do I value. If what you value is making a lot of money, then go take that job that's gonna pay you a lot of money. But have that sense of self-honesty with yourself. If you value service, then go and pursue the career that might not pay you as much, but is gonna fulfill your need to be service-oriented. And then maybe the final thing I'll say is, I kind of go back and forth when young people say, I want to do what I love, this is what I love to do. And I think that sometimes what you love to do can be an amazing career. Sometimes that's going to be an amazing hobby. Find what you're good at, because what you're good at doing is how you're going to be a good contributor, whether it's to society, to an organization, and that's where you're really gonna see strides and success of finding what you're good at. It's beautiful when what you're good at is what you love to do, but once again, like I said, you have to be super self-aware and be very honest with yourself.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
If I may, I want to add to that, and I'll start with a really embarrassing story about myself. When I was a young kid, I was growing up in Miami, and in downtown, you would see guys wearing suits like I'm wearing right now, bow ties and stuff like that. And as a young kid, I was like, oh, I want to do that when I grow up. And they're like, do what? Whatever that guy is doing. I didn't know that if you wore a suit and a tie, it could be many different jobs. Many different jobs, but I didn't know because no one in my family ever went to school or college, and we were immigrants, and I had a single mom. But there was two things that I credit throughout my career, because right after high school I did join the Navy. I did corporate insurance, public affairs. I've worked in the Senate Finance Committee. I now work in the House. I've had campaign training, did campaigns. Presidential campaigns. But the two things that helped me was the fact that I had a single mom, which taught me I don't care what job it is that I'm applying for. Many, if not all of them, I felt I was not prepared for. I felt I did not qualify for. But what my single mom taught me was that if I get that job, no one would outwork me. So that helped me apply for many jobs that I've become obviously successful in. But that was mentality. No one will outwork me. Secondly, the military did teach me, to be a servant leader. And the big thing about the military for me was learning that you have to be a good follower to be a good leader. So those two things has helped me. Doesn't matter what it is. I go in with that mentality. And sometimes you find like you love that job. Sometimes you find, cut the losses, but I've learned something new. So hopefully that helped.
Thank you for y'all's inspiring words.
All right. Are you right here? Sorry, sir.
So, hi everyone, I'm Evan, I'm from Maryland. My question to you is, how do you guys start building your career?
Well, that's a good one. Straight to the point. I like it.
I'll just say by starting a conversation. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Start a conversation. Learn from others who are in those careers. Again, as everyone's up here has been saying, you may find you love it or you're good at it. You may find not. But don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to start a conversation, to ask a question. To me, that's how I started my career, asking, what is this thing called AmeriCorps? What is the federal government? What is policy making? And continuing to grow those relationships and learning from others.
Okay, this is a really interesting question. How do you build your career? So the first thing I'll say is let's talk about the difference between a career and a job. So your career is kind of the culmination of the jobs that you have had or continue to have and hold. So oftentimes, especially when you're young, you'll get these jobs. My first job was scooping ice cream at Baskin-Robbins. I've also had jobs working in retail, selling sneakers at Foot Locker. These were all jobs, but when I think about the culmination of my career, I count those as part of it. Because in building the career, it's taking the learnings and the experiences from each of these jobs and opportunities and let it become your experience and expertise on what I call your T. Your T is the set of experiences where you can go an inch deep across. Like I can tell you how to make a pink bubblegum smoothie. Inch deep, an inch across, and then the T is where you get to go really, really, really deep. So you take all these experiences from all these jobs and your education, and you get to go deep in an area. And that T is really what, to me, makes up the culmination of your career. So building it is incremental experiences, learning from every single one.
I'll just say, I think understanding how the piece fits in the broader puzzle is like an approach that I've taken over the years. And what I mean by that is like, how does your role in your job within the organization that you work in fit and connect to the larger organization? Being willing to sort of explore that question from a career standpoint, I think helps you understand sort of the bigger picture, and therefore helps you understand sort of like what are some other areas or interests that I have that connect to the work I'm doing today that might lead me to like the next opportunity, whether it's within that organization or within that industry. Like I think understanding how what you're doing today fits in the larger picture really sort of helps you, at least me, think about career over the last, 25 years or so.
And if I can just make one more plug right outside free resources, not only the House Intern Resource Office to get your career started here, but sitting with them is the Office of Talent and Development, and that's with anyone that's already graduated college, anyone from junior career up to senior career, Office of Talent Development, free resources right outside. All right, so I think we're going to this side. Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, okay, it's working. Hi, I'm Aiden. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm a future mechanical engineer. I'm going to go to university soon, at UCI, And I just had a quick question. You guys talked a lot about how you guys started off in smaller roles at like these companies. And I just was wondering, because I had a question on that. From starting off in those smaller roles, what advice could you give me and all the other gold medalists too, from starting off from those smaller roles and climbing kind of the ladder of getting into those bigger roles in companies?
Maybe I'll start on this one, is that there's a couple of things. One, just come to terms that you're gonna start off at entry level. I had a lot of young people who have put in tremendous hard work, they graduate from college, and then they're stunned when they come in, and this job is not the job that they envisioned that they were gonna be doing right when they graduated. So go ahead and come to terms. You're gonna have to start entry level. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I will say is be patient. Be patient. I see a lot of young people losing patience with the time that it takes to develop your career and to grow, and more importantly, the time that it takes to learn and have those experiences. And then here's the third thing, which I think is my little secret that I'll share with all of my best friends in this room. I have never, ever done the job that I was hired to do. I've never done the job that I was hired to do. Because I always will go into any organization, whether it was when I was in uniform or other areas of the private sector, and say, okay, this is the job that you have hired me to do, but let me take a moment and identify where else can I be impactful across this organization? Where else can I learn from other people? Where else can I take opportunities that may serve me, may serve the organization? And kind of having that enterprising or entrepreneurial mindset, it is really, really, truly a secret to growth, because what happens when you become impactful is a good organization should begin to pour into your success as well. So then you'll see yourself continue to grow and climb.
Yeah, if I can tie into that, sorry. I was gonna say something very similar, where my agency has a lot of work groups, and as long as I could do my actual job, I volunteered for as many work groups as I could, because it allowed me to get experience outside of my job duties. It allowed me to meet people and work alongside people that I normally wouldn't have worked at, which opened up doors to, with that extra experience, opened up opportunities to go into a different department or have that relationship with someone else who could become a mentor to me. So similar, find where you're impactful, find things outside of your responsibilities that can help you grow.
I'll just add a couple things. I mean, I'll say, I think showing up is the first step, like being willing to raise your hand to support something that is important to the organization that you're in is another approach that I've tried to take. Like, do the job that you've been asked to do really well, and then look for opportunities to support your colleagues and teammates and support the organization that you're in. I think those are some things that have really served me well over the years.
This is a little bit outdated, and next time we see each other, I'll give you an updated version of this, but take 2 minutes, look up A Message to Garcia. It's 2 pages long, read it, great message. Hi, we're on here.
Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm from Idaho. My question is, what's the best advice you would give to prepare yourself for entering the workforce and starting your career, specifically throughout college and taking advantage of different opportunities?
Excellent. Who wants to take that one first?
I'll start. I mean, I think, there's the best thing that I can say is, like, there's no one path to life in terms of how you pursue your career and how you pursue their interests. There's no sort of like, these are the steps I need to take to get from the place that I am today to the place that I want to be. I find that sort of sort of the exciting part of the career journey. But there's lots of different ways to grow in your career and grow as a person. I would say for me, like I've always taken the approach of being very intentional about the things that I pursued and the things that I was interested in. And what I mean by that is, you know, I always tried to sort of look at like, how does the opportunity in front of me, whether it's an internship or whether it's an entry-level job or whether it's the job that I took at LPL 2 years ago, like how does that sort of check the boxes on the things that are important to me? And also, how does it help me sort of get to where I ultimately want to go? Candidly, I'm not sure I've fully figured that out yet, but I think having an idea of like what you want your career to look like is important. And I think understanding the opportunity that's in front of you, not just for what it is, whether it's an internship or a job offer, but where it will help you get to the thing that you want to achieve in life, is how I've tried to sort of approach different opportunities. But as an undergrad, like I intentionally took very different internships every year in between the 4 years of undergrad, and it was because I wanted to experience different things and be open to different career paths.
All right, because of time, I'm going to let that be the answer and maybe do one more question. Is that okay? I'm looking. One more. Ma'am?
Hello, I am a high school teacher from Nevada, and after years of experience, adulthood, so we already know how to communicate, problem solving, and critical thinking. In this fast-paced environment for the youth, I would like to receive your advice, and I'm going to record this conversation to take it to my students. And I would like to know how we can help youth in order to communicate better and have a problem solving and critical thinking, because majority of the career in this path, the interview, even for the internship, they want to know how they can communicate, how they can do the problem solving and critical thinking. And our youth basically don't know at this moment. Sometimes they have great ideas, but they do have fear to communicate, and their ideas stay in their mind and not communicating in order to iterate it and make it better. So what kind of advice you have in this fast-paced environment to help them to grow faster?
That's a really good question.
That is a super good question.
So you volunteering to answer it, because due to the time, we can only have one person answer.
Okay, I'll be very, very quick, because that's a fantastic question. And there was a lot there, you know, how can they make sure they preserve critical thinking skills? How can they stay up in this fast-paced environment, keep pace? And then how can they be effective communicators? I think the most important out of all of those is preserving critical thinking skills. As a teacher, placing that emphasis on there is music to my ears. Please, please, please keep doing that with your students. Teach them how to be cynical when they need to be cynical, how to second-guess information, but more importantly, how to truly, truly think for themselves. They have to realize that's a skill that has to be honed. It's going to take time, patience, and practice to continue doing them. So unplug when they can, sit time away from all of the external influence and noise, sit and think and write. I have found one of the best ways to become an effective communicator is to become a good writer, because that's how you learn how to organize your thoughts. So to your students that have great and brilliant ideas, innovative ideas, because the youth these days have amazing ideas, they got to get it out of their heads, get it onto paper, organize their thoughts, dissect it for themselves, challenge it for themselves, and then they'll be better situated for communication.
All right. Please help me. Go ahead. Huh?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I do have one last thing I want to say. It was a question on here, that we didn't get to. What is one action that every student could take in the next week to move closer to their goals? I want to say the one action I would encourage you all to do, whatever your career goal is, whatever you think you want to do, reach out to somebody in that field. Do a cold outreach on LinkedIn or one of the other job-oriented social networking sites. If you send me a cold message on LinkedIn, I will answer you. I will speak for my colleagues in advance too. If you send a cold message to one of them, they will respond and start a communication so you can know somebody in the industry. Thank you.
Actually, that's a really good way to end this as you're getting ready to go into the workforce. LinkedIn, it's a great way to do it. With a name like Jabin, trust me, you'll find me on LinkedIn. It's very simple. I will also, love to communicate with you and start building that network. Because here's the other thing I didn't tell you. After the military, I have never gotten a job that I've applied for. Every single job that I've had, even the one I have right now, was someone connect me to it. So, all right, now help me thank our panelists. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks to everybody.